Hi everyone, welcome to session 5 of RECAP, Regulatory Compliance Preparatory Solution. Today we're going to focus on intermediary services, and in fact we're going to do something different with today's session. You will find as we run through the session that we have integrated many images into the presentation. What we're trying to do is to integrate whole brain learning. What whole brain learning tries to do is to integrate the left and right hand sides of your brain. And we believe that if we are able to integrate the left and right hand sides of your brain, that your ability to remember and recall information is far more effective. And it's important to remember that for this exam, a lot of the exam is recalling information. So what we want you to do in today's session is to integrate those images, link the pictures that you see with the concepts, and to an extent if you can add an emotion to it, that's even better. So if we can integrate the concept, the image and an emotion, chances are that you'll be able to remember this information a whole lot better. Okay? It is important to remember that the Act is called the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Act. Now, for a lot of people, there's a lot of question mark around whether those individuals who provide intermediary services, whether the requirements of fit and proper are applicable to them. The bottom line is that it is applicable to them. And in fact, in the Act itself, whilst there isn't a definition for intermediary services, the regulator has made it quite clear that the Act does cover those individuals who offer intermediary services. Okay, so let's not have any confusion in that regard. So, in terms of intermediary services, the thing to bear in mind is that it is subject to subsection 3B of the Act. What is subsection 3B of the Act? Subsection 3B of the Act does not include banks who act as a conduit for the transfer of funds between the client and the product supplier. So for example, if you use a debit order as a means to transfer funds between yourself and the product supplier for the product that you have acquired, this does not position the bank as an intermediary. Secondly, if the intermediary who's providing the service to the product supplier is also licensed by another law to conduct business as a financial institution, this function, the financial institution component, the transferring of money via a financial institution between the client and the product supplier is not covered as an intermediary service. And then finally, if the intermediary is rendering such a service and it's regulated by another act or covered by another act, this does not fall into the intermediary services. The most important thing to remember is the following, that if you are a bank and there is a transmission of funds between your client and the product supplier, that conduit for transferring of funds is not covered as an intermediary function. So what is the intermediary function? It's interesting that the Act does not give you a definition of intermediary services, but does describe in great detail what intermediary services covers. And there are 5 key areas which we're going to talk about in a moment. It's important to remember that intermediary services does not cover advice. So it's not about advice, it's about the transaction that takes place between the client and the product supplier and the various permutations of those transactions that fit under intermediary services. What specifically are those intermediary services? You need to remember 5 key things in this particular section around the Act. First of all, you need to remember that there will always be a 3-way relationship in an intermediary relationship. The relationship will exist between the client, between the intermediary service provider and the product supplier. So remember this picture. This is an important picture, remember, the 3-way relationship in intermediary services. The second thing to remember in terms of intermediary services is again in the context of this 3-way relationship that your client will either offer to enter or will enter into a transaction. That transaction will involve a financial product, and that financial product will be supplied by the product supplier. So there will be the offer of a transaction being entered into or one being entered into, a financial product involved and a financial product supplier. Number 3, your client will either be buying or you will be buying a financial product on behalf of your client, remember that money will change hands. The intermediary will buy a financial product on behalf of the client. The fourth point, you will be selling a financial product on behalf of the client. So again, money will change hands and the intermediary will sell a financial product to the client or on behalf of his client. So for example, in this case, it could be the selling of shares on behalf of your client. Finally, remember that you are managing, administering, or keeping in safe custody any of your client's financial products or financial portfolio. From a management point of view, we are talking about the management of that portfolio. It includes maintaining and servicing your financial product. So for example, you could have a situation where your client's short-term policy information needs to be updated. The client has moved, his banking details have moved, or he might have got divorced and there are individuals, information that needs to change. So it's anything to do with maintaining and servicing that information, or it could be that the product is no longer suitable to your client's particular circumstance and therefore that needs to change. So remember, management and servicing of the portfolio. Then you are going to administer. So you will collect and account for premiums. These are fees that are payable from the client to the product supplier in terms of the product that's been purchased. That's your administration function. Coupled with the administration function are claims. Clients will put in claims. Things happen to people. In this instance, it's receiving from the client the necessary documentation and submitting it to the relevant product supplier in order to ensure that the client's claim can be processed timeously. Finally, under management and administration is the safe custody item. Now here, you will be keeping safely for a client some key documents in most cases, for example, share certificates, and that is your safe custody items. Now, let's remember the intermediary services relationship. There will always be a tripartite relationship between the client, the product supplier, and the intermediary. Your client will buy, your client will sell, so money will change hands. Your client will pay premiums, and you will be required to account and to administer those premiums that have been paid. Your client will claim. Your client will want to know whether the product that he has is servicing his needs, and that needs to be maintained and serviced. And finally, your client may require you to keep in safekeeping certain key items, including, amongst others, share certificates. That, in a nutshell, is what intermediary services covers within the FASE Act. Now, it would be interesting for you to go back, and let's just go back for a moment and look at the pictures. Tripartite relationship, client will buy, client will sell, client will pay premiums, client will claim, client will want to make sure that the products he has is being maintained and servicing him properly, and finally client will require you to keep certain items safe. I hope you enjoyed that session. We'll see you next time, in which we're going to deal specifically with Chapter 1 of the FASE Act. See you there.